Alright.
How's it going?
I'm Sarah and he's James and we're the Hold or Nothing. Oh, and this is Molly, my mum and dad's dog. She's just knocking about with us today.
In this episode of our How to Travel the Basics series, we've got a proper sexy subject. It is everything that you need to know about travel vaccines. Now, just to clarify, by everything you need to know, we're not actually doctors, we're not nurses, we're not medical professionals in any way whatsoever. So what we say is not final. Do take medical advice from a doctor.
This is more just a general chit chat about where we find the information about what vaccinations we need for where we're going to and how we go about considering which to actually get.
Now, there are some routine ones that you're going to need to have pretty much regardless of where you're going. But on top of that, there are some specific ones that you're going to need to get depending on which destination you are visiting.
We're going to be talking about the process here in the UK because that's where we're from. So just bear in mind that the processes and the vaccine recommendations may vary slightly depending on where you live, but this should give you a good general overview. Okay, let's do this. So as we say, there are certain vaccines that you need to have wherever you're travelling, and they're probably recommended for your home country too. So these will be the things that you should have had as part of your childhood vaccination schedule.
Quite a few of them are multiple vaccines rolled into one and include things like hepatitis B, diphtheria, meningitis, tuberculosis, mumps, measles, rubella, whooping cough, tetanus and polio.
If you're not sure whether you've definitely had these or not, you need to ask your doctor to check on your actual medical records. Don't just ask your parents because... yeah, they don't always know. That's speaking from experience. I always thought we'd had them all, and then we hadn't. So yeah, best thing, just check with your doctor on your medical records.
Another thing that's really important to note here is that depending on your age, you might not have actually had all of the currently recommended child vaccines. So you really do need to double check, especially if you're over a certain age. There might also be travel vaccines that you may have had as a child, but your doctor still recommends that you need a booster if you're going away travelling. For example, tetanus is one that they often do that for.
And if you're from the UK, all that cluster of vaccines are free. So yeah, first port of call, check with your doctor, make sure you've had all the kid ones that you were supposed to.
So next up, there are some travel vaccinations that are probably ones that you wouldn't have had as a kid because the diseases aren't widespread in your country, but they're recommended for general travel regardless pretty much of where you're actually going to. So these include diseases like hepatitis A and typhoid, which again in the UK are free. You can also get a vaccine for cholera for free, but that won't be recommended for everywhere that you might be travelling to.
So it can be a bit confusing why some vaccines are free and why some aren't. And the reason that I read why some are and some aren't is because even though we don't have hepatitis A or typhoid or cholera pandemics here in the UK, that could be a problem if they started here. So even though they're not here right now, that's why they give you them in case you go and bring them back to the UK.
Right, okay.
If that makes sense.
It does.
One thing that can be really frustrating about getting travel vaccines in the UK specifically though, is that not all GP surgeries do travel vaccines. So if your GP surgery doesn't do that, they're going to forward you on to sometimes a pharmacy if you're lucky and you'll be able to get them there for free, or if not, they're going to refer you to a private health clinic where you will have to pay for them. So it's worthwhile thinking about this well in advance of you travelling because you might actually want to change doctor's surgeries to one that does do travel vaccinations.
Now, timing wise, you're really going to need to plan it so that you start having your vaccinations a minimum of 8 weeks before you travel. And there are two reasons for this. The first one is that some of the doses that you're going to get need that period of time to actually start working in your body and develop the antibodies against these diseases. The second reason is that some of the vaccinations that you might need to have may need multiple doses over a certain period of time. So that could be days, weeks, or even months.
Which leads us on to specific vaccines that you're going to need to have for specific places that you're going. Now, your GP surgery in the UK might do these if they have a really good travel clinic, but if they do, they're not going to be free, so you are still going to need to pay for them. The other alternative is that they will refer you onto a private health clinic, which is where we went to get ours. So this is where you're going to start spending quite a bit of dosh, because these are the expensive ones. And especially if you live in a country where the other ones aren't free either, it can add up to quite a lot getting the travel vaccinations done that you need. Which is another good reason to start getting them done well in advance so that you can budget effectively for it.
So again, depending on exactly where you're going in the world, these may include Japanese encephalitis, tick-borne encephalitis, rabies and yellow fever.
So we didn't get every single vaccine that we were recommended. Basically they go on like a traffic light system, or here in the UK they do, where you have like, these are essential ones and then these are ones that you can kind of get if you want. And we based our decision on whether, if we got the disease, we could die or not. But it's worth mentioning again, we are not medically trained, so you need to take this advice from your doctor or your nurse or your medical practitioner, whoever it is that has expert knowledge in diseases and vaccines.
So basically what Sarah's saying is, don't not get a vaccine on our advice, die and then try and blame us.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
For some countries you're going to need proof that you've actually had a certain vaccine in order to even be let into that country. And one of those vaccinations that is quite common with, I think, is yellow fever. That particularly goes for South America.
Coincidentally, we've never actually been asked for our yellow fever certificates when we've entered any country in South America, I don't think. However, that doesn't mean don't get it, because it is in the guidelines, it's in the rules, it's in the immigration laws, whatever. Make sure you have it.
Now, other than where you're going, another consideration that will determine what vaccinations you actually have is what you're going to be doing. For example, if you're going to be working in a wild animal sanctuary, then you might want to think about getting your rabies vaccine. There is a lot of information out there on whether a rabies vaccine is actually useful. We've never had it because we don't feel for us that it's something that we actually need, but if you're going to be putting yourself in a situation where you might be in contact with animals that could potentially have it, then it might be an idea to have. We're not going to go any further into the rabies one specifically because there's a whole lot of information that you could read or watch if you want to. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice that you have to make for yourself. We're going to link to some resources down below which should help you determine exactly what vaccinations you need for which countries you're actually going to be visiting. And you also really need to speak to your doctor so that you can work out together what vaccines are going to be best for you to have.
Moles, do you want to come say bye? Moles! Alright, we'll see you next time in our next travel planning video. See ya!
Bye. I think she's done a fart.
It stinks.